he wants to go towards it. Does have 3 games on the pick so far. Has actually been much bigger on other things. Most played being the Ken in this split. He's picked up things like the Jace and the Camille. So they aren't going to go towards that. Instantly just going to lock in the Aphelios and their jungler. And BLG getting a really solid setup so far, bringing out the peel for the bottom lane with the Tahm Kench. We saw how instrumental that was in our last series. And WeiWei getting on something that is just so, I'd say, multifunctional, right? Aggressive in the early game, bit of a jack of all trades. You serve as a good front line. So BLG really solid draft. Ultra Prime coming with the aggression.
I mean, doesn't it make sense when I was just talking about Gwen, but how dare I, Lyric, when it's all about the bottom lane? Of course, you're cementing a strong 2v2 for BLG and a lane that can push and move. For Ultra Prime, similar priorities here as we go into the second ban phase.
Yeah, and for Ultra Prime, I mean, they ban out the Jace. That would kind of potentially signal to me if they're setting up for a Gwen pick. But one thing slipped my mind, maybe why Ultra Prime didn't go for it in their first rotation of picks, is the fact that Breathe is one of the players who does have like the biggest amount of counters he's willing to play into it, because he consistently plays at Akali. He's also been one of the players who's brought up the Fiora into the Gwen as well. So for Ultra Prime, they do got to be a little bit careful. This is still definitely the best pick left open, in my opinion. And despite the fact that we have been seeing a lot more double AP just because of the strong champions in top lane and certain counter picks being available, not always the biggest fan of double AP when you have an assassin in the mid lane, because if the enemy starts prioritizing MR, Cryin's job can just pretty much become impossible, and you're just doing a lot with your ethereal chains to lock people down. But Gwen, too OP to ignore.
That's right. So we'll see what counter Breathe wants to take this time around. On your note, when you're mentioning what he's willing to take in the past, or what he has taken, Breathe with 13 uniques, FoFo with 12. Like, this is a team that is willing to flex around with Breathe's massive champion pool. You were talking about this one. It's his second most played, 75% win rate. Breathe is going to take it again.
Yeah, comfortable in the matchup. You know you put a lot of threat onto the Aphelios in the back line with the flanks you can set up, just throwing down the Shroud in the middle of a team fight. So, makes sense. Then we get a FoFo special as well.
A new champion.
As someone who has been around since day one of FoFo's career, back when I was coaching in LMS, the 2 champions I specifically think of FoFo for are LeBlanc and Azir.
Yep.
So it is a matchup he knows extremely well. And now for BLG, I mean, they have a bunch of range to play off of. You can kind of play this sort of front-to-back team fight, have Breathe come in off the flank, threatening them, while Jinx and Azir will just be able to whittle down the front line. Ultra Prime, way more pace towards their composition, right? I mean, Lee Sin and LeBlanc definitely should be able to get tempo in this mid-jungle matchup to start impacting these sides. So we're going to be looking at Ultra Prime to be the ones putting a more aggressive foot forward.
Well, Cryin and Hacker got a big job to do. Again, we talked a lot about the bottom lane, and Cryin enabling the rest of the map as well, Lyric, a big part that I think can really revolutionize this game number 1 for Ultra Prime. They are out of playoffs. Headset down. Yes. No. Fist bump. Wait. Okay. Fist bump. Yeah. Okay. We got there in the end. Otherwise, we can't look over the logo, Lyric. That has to happen for us to get into the game. As I was saying, what was I saying? What was I saying?
You know, I don't think you even started off with your point. I think you were taking the breath to start with your point, and then the fist bump came out. So,
yeah. Ultra Prime.
Do you ever know what you're saying though?
Ultra Prime out of playoffs. BLG aren't.
There we go.
And now that I'm back on track, BLG are 7-7. And I always give you guys a bit of story because I like that people can tune in and kind of understand where teams are at in the LPL. And I like for this one that I can tell you that BLG, they might have Uzi, they might have some big name players, but this team is still not locked in playoffs. We have 3 playoff spots left remaining, and BLG are in the mid-tier right now. 7-7, they're holding 9th. But if they lose the next 2 series, even if it's just one of them, they can be contested. BLG need to come through. They need to smash Ultra Prime today, then LGD later in the week. It comes down to this team if they want to secure playoffs. Otherwise, Ultra Prime can play spoilers. Welcome back to Summoner's Rift, and sorry, we got a little bit off track there before. But now that we're into the game, Lyric, you talked about Ultra Prime's mid-jungle being everything. We want to see tempo from them to really shut down BLG from smooth sailing into this game with the Azir, with the Jinx range.
100%. Already looking for a bit of action. They're just going to get a ward down, I assume, and not really commit to any kind of heavy invade. when talking about where we expect Hacker and Cryin to look, just because of the dichotomy of the teams, I don't think it would be top right. It would be down towards the bottom side. Even Breathe being on the Akali. Akali, once she gets a few levels under her belt, could be quite a hard champion to look to commit resources into putting down on the top side, just because of her E, her Shroud, her ultimate. Like, you have so many ways of buying time and escaping ganks. So for Ultra Prime, you expect it to be mid-jungle into bot focus coming out, getting Elk ahead, having this big, strong mid-game coming out from him with his Gale Force aggressively going forward, Cryin, jumping in, Hacker setting up these plays. BLG, I think it's a lot about stabilizing early. If they can find individual leads in their lanes, that's where they will really thrive, especially up in this top side. Breathe can struggle a little bit early on, but especially to that level 6 mark, Akali does incredibly well. One of the nuances of the matchup, right, is just from the fact that a lot of Gwen's damage comes from stacking up your Q and then getting that damage in. Akali having the ability and mobility to back off with the E, or even just throwing down the Shroud. You can wait out, try and let that time out, and then look for the trade. So we will be watching Breathe in this top lane matchup.
Yeah, a matchup again that he's opted into for before. We're highlighting this guy's breadth of champion pool. And as he's going to be on a bit of an island on the top side, we know the game plan for BLG. It's WeiWei pathing towards bot. It's Hacker for now, who went buff to buff, just in case. He's been chunked out a little bit. Crisp and Uzi hit 2 first, and the bottom lane 2v2. Again, all attention lands there. WeiWei going to spot out a bit of a Poro, and now he's on the right side of the map that BLG have just loved playing towards.
For BLG, I mean, I feel like we've just seen this Tahm Kench be such a massive pick in the LPL so far. Just the amount of like variation it plays with, right? Having the PL available, but also the amount of aggression that LPL supports play with the pick. I feel like we see 2v2s every time this champion comes out, from opening up with an abyssal dive and then just being able to home forward there.
There's a little dredge line, but Chris not going to take a turret shot. He's not close enough. Elk with a good trade back as well. The minion just died, and ShiauC right on top of the hook. That's going to hurt Chris quite a bit.
He does feel some pain. WeiWei now, though. He's going to be using the scrying plant, going to back off. Does still have his bot side camps up in the Raptors and the Krugs, so can default into those as Hacker gets vision down on top side. Hacker, I don't think he has too many opportunities in terms of ganking these individual lanes themselves. Even when we said focusing on mid,
Oh no, that dredge line this time. ShiauC gets a great one, then he gets the bad one. He flashes away, ignite the trade for Crisp, and BLG's bottom lane kind of get a freebie there, Lyric.
This is what we know ShiauC for, though. ShiauC will always look for the hook. That's why he is a little bit flippy. And, instances like that, pulls himself closer with a minion kind of left in a bad position and gets punished. But in a different world, hook lands, everything goes smooth sailing.
Lyric, I forgot to mention, a little bit of a, I call it LMS, PCF face-off here. ShiauC versus FoFo. I know it's different lanes, but different top teams of the LMS in the past.
Oh, of course, right? We have, FoFo coming from TPA, then which rebranded to J-Team, and then ShiauC, of course, famously handpicked by Sword Art to be his replacement when he was kind of phasing out and knowing he was going to move on to other regions. So a lot of history here. FoFo being around longer. I believe 2016 was his debut year off the top of my head. I think in his first match, he solo killed my mid laner on the reverse of this matchup.
Oh, he did. Well, FoFo, ever since, coming to the LPL, has been a big mid lane player. Again, that was many, many years later. Right now, he's facing off against a couple of people towards mid. Chris having to flash away. He came to help out. Ignite comes down, electrocute as well. But he's out for now, at least averting the dive away from the bird chicken thing in the mid lane.
It's still nice that they were able to burn the flash out from him, because we were theorizing that Ultra Prime would put resources into mid. One of the points I was going to make before the bot lane skirmish happened is finding ganks on a FoFo can be quite hard themselves. You're a very safe champion. I mean, you have the dash to be able to get away as well. So I think for Ultra Prime, a lot of it's going to be kind of hovering with mid, trying to just guarantee the push for Cryin, and now looking bot, especially with Chris not having that flash, could be a point you can look to repeatedly punish.
Both supports out of that summoner as well, worth mentioning. Breathe and Alias hustling up in the top lane. Someone stole the 10-pack of Chicken McNuggets, and Breathe and Alias are blaming each other. BigWei pushing up into that top side turret. WeiWei up in the top side, but it doesn't look like his pathing will continue there. For now, Hacker continues to hover between his 2 solo lanes, and Breathe continues to have a great time up against this Gwen.
and he already has his level 6. And this is where we highlighted the matchup can become quite hard for Ali, as you have a lot of ways to just dodge out on the damage that the Gwen has, and, you know, enough burst to be able to take her down. So have to be a little bit careful. Luckily, Hacker is still able to guarantee that topside scuttle, despite the prio that Breathe has in that lane. And now for WeiWei heading back down towards the bottom side, but for Hacker, his camps are still up on this top half of the map.
Yeah, so let's just clear him and see where he goes next. Again, mid 2v2, trying to get priority here. Cryin for now, not really finding much success in the individual lane. He's 6, which is worth mentioning as Hacker gets close to his. But WeiWei heading back down to the god tier lane, Lyric. We must praise him, we must say good things, and we must give Uzi support.
And it makes me wonder if at this point in his career, if it's like Uzi calling for all this attention, or if it is just, you know, the players on his team knowing, well, it's like they know, hey, this is Uzi. We know if we put resources in, we'll win. Having coached teams with players like that, right? Like the BRTTs when I was in Brazil, Naru when I was in Turkey. It's might not even necessarily be them having to call for it. You just know, hey, if I put resources into this player, he will carry me.
I mean, he's in multiple games has been a pretty big condition. But again, we talked about the mid game for BLG. That was the biggest concern here. So we still want to see them get off to a bit of an early game start. And the early game start, I guess, coming back to what you talked about, is just getting through what Ultra Prime can dish out with the early laning phase when the strong mid 2v2 Lyric was all you talked about. At least around this Dragon, this Herald, we should be able to get an answer on what Ultra Prime can do now that they've hit the 6 point.
And it looks like they're going to be angling up for this Rift Herald. They are bringing ShiauC up the top side. Elk will be heading down towards bot. Breathe still has prio in this top lane matchup. One of the things they can feel good about, again, is that Azir not going to be able to dish out as much damage. It's okay, Breathe. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, he's not falling for that one. ShiauC now spotted out as well. Look at where Crisp has gone. Straight to the bottom lane. They say, forget the Herald. 4 members spotted up in the top side. Excuse me, 3. Apparently, I can't count. But at the very least, BLG not wavering from this Lyric. They are fully committing to this, and Elk now has to get pushed out of bot.
Still, you know, WeiWei not down in this bottom side jungle yet. So not able to punish Elk. Looks like he might be heading over now. They still have time to build up this wave a little bit to try and threaten the dive. At least try and zone Elk away from some CS. But WeiWei also having the shadow for his mid laner, knowing that ShiauC and Hacker will be just behind this mid lane, considering they just picked up the Herald.
So not bad for Ultra Prime, really. I mean, Herald picked up. Everyone from UP is going to the bottom lane. Uzi's trade will only be shared plating between him and Crisp at the value of 1. Elk will be able to defend the rest, and here's Hacker, here's Cryin, who now move into Fog of War. BLG feeling confident with their vision control in River, but I'd say that is hella worth hit for the red side.
100%, right? We saw WeiWei, I believe he was doing his Gromp at the very start of the interaction where we saw Ultra Prime head topside for Herald, so we saw he did want to angle for the dive, but just not there in time, already having the wave into turret, so a little bit behind on the timing for the side of BLG to be able to try and get more. Uzi does have a 10 CS lead, so that's something, but still, I mean, Elk getting all the experience, not having to share it with his lane partner, I think didn't lose all too much. In Ultra Prime, now we're going to be looking at, with this Rift Herald, what they are able to do with it, but haven't really been able to guarantee push in any of their lanes to where there is an obvious answer.
As the knockup comes through, but it is slightly missed. ShiauC baiting in for the hook, or at least thinking he can go in. WeiWei was spotted out. The missing pings are there. Ultra Prime, it's not even sussy at this point. It is just obvious. And as he gets spotted, he backs away, and there you go. Chris not getting the engage. The game stays at 0 kills at 10 minutes in. BLG through laning phase alone. They still have the gold lead, though. The only lane that doesn't have a CS lead is jungle. And Lyric, 15 up in the top side, 10 throughout middle, let's call it 5. And Uzi's down in the bottom lane. Pretty decent start for BLG, all things considered.
And something we just need to double down on is the fact that if the game goes neutral, if the game stays slow, I mean, that definitely favors BLG and their composition heading into the mid-game and some of these team fights. So Ultra Prime not even able to start stacking up any early dragons. As we've hit on, they've had to push in both mid and bot.
Okay, well, he's going in. Devour's there. Ignite down. ShiauC once again has his summoners available. As Uzi gets spat back out, he says, man, this guy tastes like experience. Hacker over the wall with a blast cone. He's got a Herald. and he knows exactly where to put it. A dredge line in, that's a risk, ShiauC. A big old risk that he almost paid for it while Breathe up at the top side. Are you ready for a solo kill? But son, he's not winning.
No, Breathe getting a little bit ahead of himself on that one, hoping to finish it off. Doesn't look like the second part of the R connected with the damage, and Ali is still having, you know, the stacked up Q, and also looks like he had one more proc of needlework. I'm sure we'll get a replay of that one to see how it all went down. But point is, he thought he found it, he did not. Breathe having the advantage so far in this lane, gets E down, procs the bone plating, waits for that one to go down, goes in with another Q. Looks like he did get an auto off with his passive. Damage following through. Does get the ult off, but the resistances he gets from the W, the healing coming out from his passive. Gwen doing Gwen things.
Do we laugh at Gwen? Do we laugh at Breathe? Either way, it feels like the
both
playing top side deserves, yeah, a bit of both. Herald in bottom lane. Ultra Prime are going to be head and gold here, Lyric, and that plating shed off to Elk means he's now even in CS, but also up in gold over the AD carry extraordinaire. Top side as well after the dive. The kill evens out the CS lead. And for Ultra Prime, they may not be super far ahead in this game, Lyric, because what happened here? Okay, a bit of a doozy. That's what you'd call a Russell tussle in the bottom lane.
Hey, and it goes back to what Uzi said in the pregame interview of he actually has respect for Elk. He knows a lot of AD carries now playing a lot more aggressively, and it reminds it of himself. And Elk definitely showing that in that exchange. Again, it's kind of a bit of a tragedy that Elk is on a team that is performing so poorly in the LPL. They're 5-9, so it's not like they haven't been able to pick up series, but you know, the fact that they're already out of playoff contention is a little bit rough to someone who has consistently been in playoffs for the past few years of him being in the LPL.
WE, it was Elk who got better and better with each year. Previously known as Jomong. Remember when he first came into the league, people were like, this guy's a bit of a meme. But each and every split, Elk became better and better. He's had some pretty pop-off moments, and what?
Now that you mentioned it, it's kind of funny that like the story of WE in 2020 with him was kind of like, hey, funneling everything into bot side because their bot lane was so like back and forth. You knew they were going to play aggressively, but typically it was going to end in them killing themselves and losing. So they had to funnel resources to cover their weakness. To now, it's you're funneling resources into him because he has been one of the biggest strengths in terms of AD carries. So kind of nice to see how the script is flipped with, you know, more experience and more improvement coming out from these players.
Almost went to Worlds. I mean, it's worth mentioning that WE were one of those teams that could have done it in the past couple of years. But Elk...
Yeah, last split.
Yeah. Like, it was so close, and I thought WE could do it. As we're getting dive territory. Who's going to be death charge? Eating up the knock-up from ShiauC. Chris goes himself, and the Ignite, they're blowing up. Uzi takes one, and Chris just played that so well as Breed Shuriken flips on in. But now with a double distortion, Cryin laughs him to death. It's a trade, but I have to say that Chris is making me hungry for Tadpole.
I mean, how fast his fingers were in that moment as well. Devour instantly goes for the knockup, knowing he's going to have the follow-through to try and guarantee a kill.
Hacker wants a Sonic Wave. Turret's going to go down. Now that it's down, Hacker still wants to follow up, but this Licky Tongue is literally playing the sushi game in Pokemon Stadium 64. I feel like he's getting top score.
I got to say, though, that honestly great game.
Yeah.
Probably the funnest mini game in that is, you know, they were being a little bit, I think, on the knife's edge with sticking around, but we're going to see here again. Like, crisp, amazing reaction time, instantly goes for the tower, jumps in right away, you know, in sync with the TP. They guarantee this first kill. Cryin here misses an Ethereal Chain, which that confused me, but still, with Breathe going and trying to find the kill onto Hacker, it just opens up for Elk and Cryin to turn around. A bit tragic as Hacker looks like he's only about 1 HP. Could have at least been a 2-for-1 as we come back onto the map. BLG going to start this one up. Crisp is here first, but the members of Ultra Prime are on their way.
So Breathe is struggling, but now Uzi is not. So we've got a weird dichotomy in this game as FoFo and Chris start moving away to the second Herald. Teleport being burned in. Ultra Prime want to bustle their tussle, as I don't know what that means, so we're going to rustle tussle, excuse me. If I say that word again, pause as Breathe goes into the back line. ShiauC going golden WeiWei with the ulti immediately. Uzi gets the execution with the ulti himself, but Elk with a 3-man, but he's only got the Calibrum. Breathe making up for his mistakes as Chris wants to go over again. Jumping on in, kicked away. Hacker with the note button, but BLG, all they can think of is, yes, FoFo's ulti and flash available, and with that Ultra Prime, pay the respect.
And now BLG could be able to go back onto this Rift Herald, guarantee themselves that objective. You look across the map. I mean, even just pan on this mid lane turret right now, how low that is. One charge of a Herald will guarantee that and start opening up the map for the side of BLG. So a lot to take away from that fight.
Lyric, Cryin a little bit fried, but as we see the replay, I'm sure I'll now see that Breathe made up for his earlier regrets in this fight as he split apart.
I mean, we saw him dissuading the backline. FoFo as well, doing so much to push Elk away with the Sand Soldiers. Cryin not able to get in the midst of things. I believe Elk's Moonlight Vigil just completely... Okay, so it does actually hit. It looked like only 2 members. Don't think it hit Uzi. As Uzi able to follow up with the damage on the back line. But I feel like the key part of that fight was, again, Breathe kind of pulling Hacker and Cryin around on one side of the fight, and then FoFo Soldiers in place, not allowing Elk to walk too far forward. So they're able to just take ShiauC out of the fight right away, guarantee the numbers advantage, and be able to follow home from there. And for BLG, they have so much consistent DPS, right?
Yeah.
That's what Azir Jinx brings you. In extended fights, they're going to do extremely well compared to the opposite side for Ultra Prime. You have a ton of bursts coming out with this LeBlanc, with this Lee Sin. So typically, you want to be able to find those quick picks, be able to transition that into numbers, and then be able to either take the fight from there, or at least you got the pick so the enemy doesn't feel confident in trying to force a fight into you, so therefore you just get the objective for free.
So tell me, Mr. Bill Gates, in 20 seconds for BLG, their ultimates are back up and available, and it just feels like FoFo, who has a bounty for some reason at 186 CS, have the tools to play a straight 5v5 with not many angles needed apart from Breathe.
Yeah, and for BLG, they're already transitioning into it. You can see FoFo making his way down. They don't have vision around the bottom side, so that does open up a potential area where Cryin can flank.
Nice bit of damage. Uzi sending the rocket, and people want to lull at that. You know they do. But the reason he does that is to burst down the AD carry. They open up mid. They open up near the Dragon Pit. They're going for a second charge. Azir's Sun Turret is playing a CD disc in place. And as Ultra Prime accept the push-in of the Rift Herald, they lose so much damage on the inner. BLG sticking around. The Dredge line not connecting. Cryin bursting down quite a bit, but who's he going to recharge? And that Dragon is still on the agenda.
I at least like that Cryin understands his role in these fights for the fact that he can just pivot in and out trying to get this poke down. Remember, Tahm Kench, not all too great against poke in terms of, you know, your Devour being able to save against all-in, so he could get consistent damage down onto FoFo, Uzi, whoever. It'll do a lot in the long run. Ultra Prime, I think, if they want to find fights, kind of need a flank to come out. Hacker's looking for it.
Well, but he's going to be too late. I mean, there's no smite in front of the Dragon. Ultra Prime want to face after the fact as WeiWei's at half HP. Hacker's still there, but it's a double Dragon. ShiauC flashing, making FoFo burn his own. That's nice. But Ultra Prime still haven't found a pick. Cryin going forward. Hacker now joins in. Uzi off to the left side. They're running at them. A bit of a stare-off, an awkward one, like that person who walks past you in public and they're staring at you and you don't know why.
Yeah, that, you know, to me that kind of sums up the USA more so than any other country I've been to. I don't know how much it sums up Australia in your mind. I feel like your people seem way too friendly for their own good, so I guess it's not,
we drink a lot
not
too.
very much. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. Because, you know, BLG, 2 dragons, not much of a gold lead, but again, in terms of game state, I feel like not much of a gold lead is still a pretty big gold lead for their side. Now we're going to see how much Cryin is able to do on this LeBlanc, trying to find picks in this side. Now we're starting to see him link up with Hacker, the thing we talked about a lot in the early game. It's going to be all about the Lee Sin and LeBlanc, but FoFo going to respect, and WeiWei even doing a nice job of covering.
And so they're just continuing to push themselves along to a nice, easy point. They've got 2 dragons. BLG, this is a mid-game that we now need to talk about, Lyric, because, excuse me, mid-game has been their problem. Mid-game decision-making around Barons especially, around some of these neutrals, has been some of the issues for BLG. And now that they've got a couple of dragons, they're in the driver's seat, but they've been in this position before against some of the even better teams and have kind of dropped the ball.
And right, this is where we started talking about for BLG, that typically they don't really know how to turn the cogs of the game forward. I think luckily for them in terms of composition, this is kind of a fine one to just be like, hey, we're going to sit, we're going to chill, we're going to play the dragon stacking game, because you know it's just going to become rougher and rougher every time for Ultra Prime to be able to try and force their way in. BLG especially with, I mean, even Disengage coming out from the Emperor's Divide on FoFo. Other members other than Cryin will have a very difficult time. So I feel like in those standoffs, you're going to be relying a lot on trying to get down the poke we saw before.
Yep.
Now for Ultra Prime, I think it's about just trying to find that avenue in through the side lane. That's why I see Hacker just, ooh, ShiauC might be fine.
Okay, for now, you don't get the 3 Talon strike. You need the number 3 to connect here for WeiWei to get the knock up, and good little return here from Elk. It's pick potential for both these teams, and everybody starts rotating. It goes to nothing, and everyone goes back to the side lane. So I guess we're just going to farm up until the next neutral. Hey, Hacker's here, but FoFo has a slide and glide, and I'd be scared now that WeiWei's here. The damage massive. It's 1.5 item Azir, but for Cryin, he's a 1 item LeBlanc. Nothing happens in the end, and unfortunately, Lyric, we have to talk to each other again.
Well, one thing we need to remember about BLG's composition is that it doesn't really have engage. I mean, right, you're kind of throwing out a W into an E coming out from WeiWei. Maybe Chris starts off with the Abyssal Dive, but point is, you don't really have a ton of ways of trying to aggressively push for a lot of these advantages or find picks like Ultra Prime does. So at least it kind of buys Ultra Prime time in between objectives where it's like, hey, the enemy team's not really able to force onto us. So there are some, at least, silver linings or exploitable areas for Ultra Prime to be able to buy time, get more items onto Elk, who is, you know, keeping pace with Uzi, sitting on 2 items so far. So kind of looking at him to be the reliable big carry. Ali is also not really too far behind in terms of items, despite being 20 CS down in that top lane matchup.
It's kind of been trailing like that the whole game long. Ali is in the laning phase, started losing to Breathe. Got the solo kill when Breathe tried to dive him, and has been keeping up ever since. So worth mentioning the Gwen, I agree. As Baron's now up, but it's that Dragon in a minute that leads to an Ocean Soul for a team that has an Azir and a Jinx. That would be detrimental for Ultra Prime. So I'm curious about the setup for this one, as Cryin and Hacker still group up together. BLG matching them for now. FoFo has a big stick with a huge piece of sun on the end. And as his turrets disappear, his soldiers, I should say, I still want to see the slide and glide to see that Emperor's Divide.
And FoFo critically doesn't have flash up just yet. It will be up soon, so it's very important that he was able to finish off that Zhonya's, because that could have been a potential target for Cryin to look to punish. Just look at the minimap. Aliez angling for a flank.
It's spotted out though. Breed does a good job with the control ward after the fact as well. Damage onto Uzi. I wonder who sent that towards him. Probably Cryin, as his ulti is down, as he picks up the lettuce in the river. Looking to finish that salad up, and Ocean Soul apparently is part of it for now. Lyric 3 seconds. Ultra Prime slow to the river, but BLG not exactly sitting on top of it.
No, BLG taking this one slow. And we need to remember, as you highlighted, Breathe kind of playing off on this flank, making sure that Alias can't come from behind.
He's not there yet either. I mean, he has Death Rocket, but no heal burned in the replays. 3k here for the Dragon. Hacker in front of it, wants the kick and gets it, but he's out of the pit. BLG can burst it down. Hacker, what a grave mistake. Elk doing the damage though, and a fight potential is there as Cryin jumps on in, and FoFo now on the back of it as well, doing his job in the pit, but he's being burnt down. The ulti, the escape, the flash, he doesn't get through. It's so messy. I absolutely love it. Like a 5-year-old boy's room. Clothes are everywhere, and no one's picking them up.
No, but BLG walking with the Dragon. They're heading the team fight so far, but the fight's not ending.
Okay, they got grabbing him as well. Uzi eaten up for a second. Chris will throw him out with a massive shield. He now gets reset. It's a bait. Elk walks into the trap, and Uzi and Chris deal with him, but no!
What? Wait!
Somehow, Elk gets it. Chris is going to be next. A triple kill. What the hell did we just witness?
A 6-0 Aphelios. Look, we were hitting on single-handedly winning games for the side of Ultra Prime. Alone turns that fight around. My God, I wonder, what he's going to be able to pick up off base with how much gold he's going to have in his inventory. Luckily for BLG, they pick up the Dragon, so they are on Soul Point. But my God, what a huge fight coming in from Elk. And I don't even have time to pass back off to you as we go straight into the replay. We see WeiWei coming in. They get chunked low because they're being forced onto the Dragon. Nice ultimate coming out from WeiWei as Hacker tried to find the kick. That's what guarantees the Dragon for their side. They instantly get on top of ShiauC. They have the numbers. This is where it kind of looked like it'd be a clean wipe for the side of BLG, in my opinion. but Elk able to find a huge Moonlight Vigil onto FoFo.
Oh.
FoFo funneling into the pit feels like a bit of a mistake coming out from him, and this is where BLG still wanted to angle for the fight because they have the range coming out from Jinx. They have, you know, the 3v2 coming out for their side, but this is where things go a little bit awry. Is throws down the turret, gets the stun off with the Gravitum, instantly turns to where the Devour has to come out, lands the skill shot, hits up with the auto. But here, this is where I was surprised. I want to see what damage just absolutely bursts.
What?
What?
It's just a crit.
Just a crit, yeah. Just a bit of RNG being in Elk's favor.
I get it.
But still, that's exactly what you need. I mean, picked up the IE off of that one, has the stopwatch as well. And now, I mean, my God, you have to watch out for him gale forcing forward, throwing out a Moonlight Vigil, just deleting everyone.
Yeah, I mean, stopwatch worth mentioning, right? And 6 and 0. The 3 items you picked up. Lyric on the other side. Uzi has 3 items too, but the stopwatch difference could be crucial. In the last fight, we saw that FoFo did an ult. Where are the soldiers, dude? I just want to see the massive shields bop someone into a corner. FoFo, this is the signature pick, and so far, he hasn't had access to change the way the fights are played with his R button.
No, and I mean, even if he doesn't, like, look for a crazy swoop and group on some key target, even just using it to play next to your Jinx and peel feels like, you know, a great way of playing. And him going down so early took away one of the advantages in BLG's comp, which, you know, making it very hard for Aphelios to walk forward into a Jinx Aphelios, right? Again, going back to the old mantra of just picking things that outrange him and make his life hard to deal with. But Elk found the opportunity in that last team fight with the Moonlight Vigil, and now Ultra Prime trying to find this mid lane turret.
And this has lead them ahead in gold. Ultra Prime, it was the early game that BLG controlled, and they might still have 3 dragons, but UP are now 2 items, 3 items strong, as we talked about in the 80 carry case. They're in a very good position in this game, and as Dragon comes up in another minute 30, I think we're going to get that fight again, Lyric, and once more Ultra Prime seeming to be favored with now 3.5 with the Last Whisper picked up on top for Elk.
I still feel like BLG are in the commanding position in this game. As you can see, that they don't feel comfortable matching Breathe in the side lane. That's why we're continuously seeing them group up as a 5-man and drop waves inside. So they're losing it on that front. You still have a gold lead on the side of BLG. The fact that you're on soul point puts the pressure of landing a steal or a smite into Hacker's court. And I mean, right, that fight went so well for Ultra Prime, but it also was with FoFo going down so early on. When FoFo put himself in that aggressive position, FoFo, at the start of that fight, was actually next to Uzi. Yeah. Aggressively went into the pit and gave the window for Elk to come out. So I think BLG should still be slightly favored going forward in fights. But Elk's flash about to come up, the stopwatch still there. If he can survive and get that damage off, there's always a chance for Ultra Prime.
And they have the wave pushed up for now as well. Breathe setting up for the top side turret. BLG back in the gold favor, but it was only for the side that they took as WeiWei actually caught out. Depth charge going to be used. Hackers here, they're in melee range, but Chris to the rescue. Teleport used, but it's in the middle of 5 people. Luckily, away he goes as Breathe manages to survive, but now it's front to back. Breathe makes it a back to front, and Ultra Prime are going side to side. Elk going golden though. FoFo's all getting Aphelios. It's up to Uzi. Kill the president. Elk needs to go down, and he falls. Finally, BLG can breathe.
And now we're going to see, can Cryin steal away the dragon and make sure they can't get soul?
No, he can't.
Yep.
There we go. Chris actually going in as well. Cryin gonna die, and immediately Ocean Soul coming into effect. Uzi running that TP's gonna come through, but Chris won't be able to interrupt. Out goes Cryin, and Ultra Prime, it looks like this time their window was not successful.
It's so crazy, too, because initially that TP looked like it was going to be a huge mistake. Of course he'd be able to get away. He's an Akali, but the fact that he's able to find the re-engage, it opens up for Soul to go over to BLG. I mean, again, it's been messy. Yeah, I think you said it in the last team fight, been like, you know, a young boy's room closer everywhere, but in the end they were able to find it. WeiWei, though, gets caught out. Really nice angle coming up from Cryin. Sets up for them to find the all-in, but Chris clutch there in time with the Devour. Looked like a huge whoopsie. Ultimate and the E comes out straight away. He's going to be able to follow up on Hacker here. Bursts him out with the R2. And then with no real way of locking him down, with ShiauC already throwing out his ultimate and his Q, Breed's just able to keep running forward. We finally see FoFo use that ultimate. throws Aliez away, and then Elk is able to find one in return, but Uzi gets the reset. He can keep going forward, and BLG just completely wiped the fight. So Elk massive, 7-1-0, but Uzi 5-1-5 now on this Jinx.
But my MVP of this game, if it's a BLG win, has to be Crisp all the way. Like, Crisp has been not only a saving grace, but has been so clean with the timing of these engages. Crisp again on Tahm Kench. 1-1-9. It's 10 out of 11 kill participation. Crisp has been one of the best supports of the league. And now for BLG, it looks like they're going to continue striving forward. Try and give Crisp this win in front of the Baron at 2K. As Sonic Wave connects, they pause, they hold, they wait for Hacker to take it, but he doesn't. It resets as Breathe goes golden. He's done a bit of a whoopsie. The ult comes through, eaten up, saved by Crisp again. WeiWei's ulti great as Cryin has to get out of dodge. Hacker with the Sonic Wave won't take it, and FoFo start to whack away over the wall. This bird is about to serve as Breathe is caught out, but no! He takes down Cryin. The mid laner down, boys. We start again.
Yeah, and BLG go right back at it. They still have the range to play off. FoFo looks like he's trying to play zone control, not allow Hacker to get in, putting out a huge amount of damage.
ShiauC might regret this one. There's a depth charge there, but Alias has come from the flank. He's teleported in. There's the dredge line again. Onto the back. Hacker needs a steal. Alias running through in the pit. Hit up, knocked up. The needlework big. They need to take it. It's secured. A massive steal, but FoFo again. This chicken is doing his dance, and Alias looking for his pants. FoFo versus Alias is now the matchup, but they're going to back away with a stolen Baron and the game going on.
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, Ultra Prime find the kills, they find the Baron. It looked like a hopeless situation. Elk starting that one off by deleting Breathe. Breathe completely regretting his decision to go for that flank. And then kind of being collapsed on from both sides, Ultra Prime were able to pull it through. Not only the Baron on one member, also able to pick up another turret. Heck, even getting the objective bounty gold on top of it.
It's big. It's a big play when this was the second attempt at Baron Lyric, or is this the first?
This was the second. This is where we see Breathe go in, just gets one shot on that end. And then Alias, I mean, he's on the Gwen, right? So he loves these fights in close quarters, where he's able to get off all of his AoE. FoFo with a really nice ultimate to push two members away and guarantee that kill. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Gwen being so pivotal, Breathe not able to find his mark, and it allowed for Ultra Prime to once again find another saving grace. And let's be real now. We know this game's going to be decided at Elder. 100%, this game will be decided in 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Whoever comes out with that fight, I feel like they just win the game. Ultra Prime shouldn't be able to do too much with only having Baron on this one member, especially from the fact that we've seen that Breed's been able to keep up pressure in that 1v1 and that Alias outright avoided him. So maybe push it in the spot wave and can pressure the tier 2 turret, but it shouldn't really turn into much more for the side of Ultra Prime.
It's against Ocean Soul as well, worth mentioning. Ocean Soul giving a nice little boon here for for BLG. It's UP now in the solo lanes with the Baron buff you mentioned, and you're right, it's not doing too much. FoFo going to slowly clear this away. Elder's up in 1:30. Ultra Prime do have priority in the map, it's worth mentioning, but Breathe is solo pushing this side lane, adding his own piece of pressure. He'll get this inner turret. Ultra Prime aren't taking the back here, but it looks like Breathe is going to be extra cautious and won't stick around to say hello.
Yeah, Ollie is he's not gonna be that cautious. He's gonna stick around, use his Baron buff. Is, playing pretty decently, right? The second he sees the members of BLG not show on mid wave anymore, starts to back up a little bit, play a bit more reserved, push out waves now. Pretty much just gonna be looking at, summoners, cooldowns. What do we have?
Yep.
Uzi, no flash, gonna be a critical one. But on the opposite side, Elk also doesn't have his flash. Neither AD carry coming out with stopwatches, so if they get bursted out, it is just pretty much they are gone. Luckily for Uzi, does have the Devour to rely on, unlike Elk not having any defensive tools. So I'd say relatively even fight in terms of summoners coming out. You do have the double Zanyas for Breathe and FoFo, so it does feel like some more tools there. For Ultra Prime, Alias feels like the big one to buy space for Elk to be able to pop off.
Yeah, and he has Zonyas as well, so he can be a bit more aggressive. Note that FoFo, speaking of items, doesn't have the Rabadon's death cap before this fight. 10 seconds to go, and Breathe is on an angle as well, sitting with a needlessly large rod too. In between items for BLG, we do have a Hex Drinker here for Elk, which is going to help give him survivability for Breathe for FoFo. We begin, Lyric, in front of Elder. You said This is what it's going to come down to at 9k already. Ultra Prime had the perfect Aphelios guns. Elk is level 17 and ready to dish it out, but Hacker's left in the pit by himself. WeiWei forcing himself in. The Crescent Guard comes through, but Alias gets full access back onto the Dragon. WeiWei wants an out, and as the Ignite comes through, Ultra Prime, they've started off with a plus.
I'm just so surprised that WeiWei aggressively walks in and throws out his ultimate against the Gwen for no reason.
And he had to heal.
And it just gives Elder. It just gives Elder to up.
He had to heal. FoFo gets hit by Elk. Breathe, acting like a prodigy in the back line. But now for BLG, they're so split up. Ultra Prime are going to clean this with the Aphelios. BLG, what happened? Ultra Prime getting access to Uzi. He's going to get a reset here. Hang on a minute. Dodges away, kites up. Uzi trying to 1v3 this against Alias. He doesn't have Elder. Uzi's not the one with Elder, but he walks into a grab and getting a reset again. He tried. That's a noble attempt from the legendary AD carry, if I've ever seen one.
He was kiting so well, but then he walked into the crescendum turret, which got him so low. Of course, Ultra Prime have Elder. And my God, the BLG mid and late game is so tragic. We see it time and time again. Hysterics, it hurts.
It's just repeating, and Ultra Prime, they're playing upset here today as they run through the middle of the map. BLG on their last legs in game one, all of a sudden against this Elder. Chris trying to buy time with the knockup away. He gets destroyed by Alias. Breed down to 1v3, but Elder's doing work. Elk dodging away. The better AD wins with a massive question mark as WeiWei's next. Ultra Prime turn and burn for a game one upset.
I mean, great coming out from Ultra Prime. I mean, again, Elk, really good performance coming out with the Aphelios. Always feels like he's the member we need to highlight. Cryin had some moments on the LeBlanc. But what? Like, I don't understand what BLG were looking for in that moment where we see WeiWei walk forward, pop the Crescent Guard, and like try to force onto the Gwen. You then get chunked low and have to back. It's like, in a standoff, I feel like you're the team that should be fine. You had just pushed in mid-wave. They're losing, you know, experience and gold. You can just keep poking them down with your Jinx. Azir, sure, the LeBlanc will be putting some damage off on you, but you're the team that has Ocean Soul. I feel like in that extended standoff, you'd feel fine. You're waiting for the LeBlanc to come in. You have a call. Like, everything just felt fine to me until they so aggressively pull the trigger and just give them Elder for free.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Yeah. BLG, the same team at least, they remain true to their issues. Because game,
I figured it out.
Look at it.
I figured it out.
What is it?
I figured it out. Someone touched the monkey paw. It's like, you know, can we get Uzi back? And it's like, yes, you may have Uzi back, but he is never allowed to win a series again. It has to be it.
The button.
Has to be it.
The button.
The button. Yes, it's the button. It's the
button thing we did yesterday. Yeah. I don't know. I'd be sweating for BLG in a series that's so important for their standings. They haven't even locked in playoffs yet. BLG now down a game against Ultra Prime. And if you don't follow the LPL, note that game difference is really important too. BLG right now in a +3 game differential, which is great. But every game counts when we get towards final position of playoff standings. And with BLG yet to secure, this is a really hard hitting game one. Ultra Prime only fighting to upset here, Lyric. And you know, Elk is once again the focus with an Aphelios game that needs to be looked at very highly.
You know, and I think an important thing to point out is, right, like you said, they're on 7 series. FPX or OMG, one of them will 100% get to 7 series because they play each other. Even looking at someone like Anyone's Legend schedule, Anyone's Legend plays WE. They still have a series against top esports, which I think is doable. Like, my God, if BLG don't win this, I really feel like they're in trouble.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, if they